I'll start the meeting. So,
we're looking at it, the traffic camera.
Wow, we got a cynic in the audience.
Maybe he agrees with me.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. And Peter, if you would call the roll.
All right, Rickard?
Here.
Epstein? Here. Smith?
Here.
Dorbrook? Here. And O'Grady? Here.
Any announcements, Eric?
Just like to welcome everyone to the special board meeting at 5 o'clock on Friday, August 30th. If anyone wants to ask any questions or make any comments during this that are reviewing it live, they can email eChristison@KMPUD.com.
Okay. Any corrections to the agenda or consent calendar? Being none, any comments from the audience? There being none, we'll move to the adoption of the consent calendar. We will approve the regular board meeting minutes of August 10th, approve the current consent for claims, review receivable shutoffs report, and resolution 1905 interfund transfer and loan to wastewater from electric.
Move we accept the consent calendar. Sorry.
Okay,
I'll second that.
moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. We'll move on to action items for the board. And Kelly with the finances.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So we will start with the balance sheet on page 23. So you'll note the variance in operating cash and accounts receivable, and that's directly related to the fact that we have not yet received final apportionments from Alpine County. We hadn't received them in July. We did receive a check in August from Alpine County, but still have not received final apportionments from them yet. And during the audit that we had last week, we sent confirmations to Alpine County, and we got a response back that they were having some issue with some software, and they didn't know what the numbers were going to be for final apportionments. So I had assumed the email that I previously received from Lowell Black was were the final apportionment numbers, and so that's what was booked. With the new information that was sent to the auditors, we may have an adjustment to property tax receivables because I went with the email that he sent me, and now we don't know if those numbers are right, so we could be getting more in a final apportionment or less. So just a heads up on that.
Just to clarify for those of you not on the finance committee or haven't been involved in the fire negotiations, Lowell Black is the new finance director for Alpine County.
So it's been a struggle with Alpine County for this year with property tax revenue apportionments.
So is there a recommendation that we close the books and do an adjustment or hold them open indefinitely?
No, we would close the the books, but we're hoping to get this by September 30th when we finalize the audit, because that's when the books will be closed, when the audit is finalized. So hopefully by September 30th we'll have that information, so we won't have to do an actual adjustment to prior year for next year. So
I'm just curious. Well, first of all, what's the scale of the? Do we know? Is this in the?
We don't know.
Tens of
And they didn't tell us, by the way. It was Kelly slightly misspoke. They told the auditors when the auditors inquire, and they forwarded the email to us because we were in the dark.
when we
that
do our
this was gonna change.
confirmations for the audit.
Because the last confirmation we had was earlier in August of how we were going to do the apportionment, and they told the auditors, "Oh, yeah, no, that's not right." But they have not given us any indication of magnitude, up, down, sideways, at all. It's been very frustrating.
Is there any legal requirement that they provide us with what the 20% within a certain period of time? Or is this just loosey-goosey?
There is not a legal requirement within a certain amount of time, although I've already checked with district council on this prior to this screw-up with what they had done previously since the transition from Carol as a finance director and CAO. And there is some recourse for us, but timeliness is a harder one to go after.
And we have received final apportionments from both El Dorado and Amador counties in their normal fashion, the time frame that we usually receive apportionments from them. So just something to note.
Well, I would encourage you to contact him directly and just
Oh,
start the dialogue about, we would like this sooner rather than later.
We have multiple times, and we've already gone over his head multiple times, and Terry Woodrow's aware of it as well and has weighed in on our behalf as well. They've given us multiple reasons.
Yeah.
It's an ever-moving target as to the reason. I don't know which one is
The right
legitimate.
one. Yeah. Okay. Any questions other than that on the balance sheet? You'll notice that the balance sheet doesn't actually balance yet, but it's because we haven't closed June, and this happens every year. Until we close June, the balance sheet is going to be a little bit off. Okay, moving on then to the operating cash by fund. You'll obviously see that G&A is in a highly negative state, and that is strictly due to the fact that we haven't received our property tax apportionments yet.
So I just want to go back to that. So this is a negative 844,000. And that's more than all the property taxes from Amador, El Dorado, and Alpine. And we received some from Alpine after January, right?
Right.
So
It always goes that way because of the way we do G&A allocations. It sits negative, but at the end of the year, it comes positive. It's just the way that the money and the allocations flow through G&A. I know it looks. I mean, it's definitely higher than it normally is. It's usually at about a negative $300,000 through the months, but it just has to do with the timing of property tax apportionment receivables and the way we do G&A allocations.
how much were we expecting from Alpine?
Well, we just
On the
got
order of what?
around $350,000.
Okay.
And what did we get?
So far, we've received 200 and in August we got 220 right about, and so yeah, we're expecting to receive more, and that's also in Mello-Roos too as well. So yeah, they're making our books look very strange
so
right
the
now.
Mello-Roos that goes to the county hasn't come back to us.
Right, that hasn't come either. That all comes to in the same property tax apportionment checks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's why that's the other reason why this looks so low is because we had to pay for our Mello-Roos out of our operating cash. We did get the Mello-Roos check in that check in August. August 1st is when we received it. So that's the other reason why this looks so negative is because we hadn't received that property tax apportionment, which was $339,000 on top of the $250. So.
Okay, thanks.
And so water and wastewater, both in the positive, due to property tax apportionment allocations. And propane obviously doesn't get any property tax apportionments. That is straight what they have in their operating cash right now. Snow removal, obviously, back to negative. We brought it to zero, but it's obviously back to negative because we haven't received any cash yet. We won't start receiving that until August is when some money starts getting received. Any questions on operating cash? Okay. Moving on to the combined income statement. So for July, revenues were up by $25,000. You notice there is a variance in payroll taxes and employee benefits for July, but that just has to do with the timing of when our payrolls fell. We had the way the system allocates out health insurance and things like that is based on a timing of we have a first payroll and a second payroll. So because the last payroll in July was paid in August, we consider that the first payroll in August. And so when we had our second payroll in August, it also had some July. It had one day in July in it. So the allocations for health insurance get posted to July, but you'll see it wash out in August. It just has to do with timing and allocations. So I don't want you to think that we went out and spent a bunch of money on benefits for employees. So it just has to do with timing of payrolls. And total operating year-to-date is up from plan by $107,000. So a good start to the year. Moving on to the general fund on page 27, you'll notice the large variance in contract services, and we haven't received any invoices from Los Adams, and I had budgeted to receive invoices from them in July, August, and September, so that's just a straight timing issue. Moving on to, I didn't have any notes on fire, but I would like to mention the operating revenues for fire. We did come in over what we had budgeted for the summer festival, but portions of that revenue are posted straight to our 501c3. So it looks like it's right on point, but we actually did receive almost $20,000 in cash donations, and that doesn't come through on our P&L. It sits directly in the 501c3. So a very successful summer festival this year. Moving on to water on page 30. Total operating for water is up from plan by $7,000, but again, still operating at a loss of $6,700. Moving on to wastewater on page 31. Year-to-date total operating is up from plan by $15,000. So that's good for wastewater, but again, still at a loss of $14,000. Moving on to electric on page 33. Year-to-date operating revenues are up from plan by $24,000. And year-to-date total operating is up by $52,000. And I just wanted to note we did get our first interest earned from the LAIF account. So that's what that $2,900 in interest earned was from that $1 million that we transferred over to the LAIF account. So that was a really good decision by the board to decide to hold money in that account rather than in our regular operating account.
So on operations and maintenance for several of these funds, it's running at half of budget. Is that just because more will catch up later?
Yeah, it's just timing of when we thought projects were going to be completed or when we thought we were going to be doing stuff. So
okay.
Yeah, it's just all about timing at this time of year. Okay, moving on to snow removal on page 35. You'll notice that there was $13,499 in other revenues, and this is from billing for snow stakes and labor. We have not yet purchased those snow stakes, but we bill ahead for it so that we have the cash on hand to be able to make those purchases. So that's what that $13,000 is. It's all the labor and snow stake actual purchases. And you'll notice the overage in salaries and benefits.
I don't understand. We also sent them invoices for snow removal.
Right.
But that doesn't show as revenue?
No, because that's
Because it's amortized?
Yeah, it's exactly.
Okay.
I amortize that out through the months of the contract, so October, yeah. And the overage in salaries and benefits is due to snow removal contract negotiations and the GPS research that was happening all through July and through August, too. I believe there was still quite a bit posted.
I don't think it was GPS research. I think it was reports that you're talking about. It was report server work, I think.
Oh, I thought you were still doing all of the
GPS is all
GPS stuff. Okay,
No.
my mistake.
Which line item were you discussing?
Salaries and
Salary
wages and payroll taxes and benefits,
Oh,
the
okay.
overage there.
Yeah.
Moving on to propane on page 36. Year-to-date revenues are just under plan by about $2,000, but with the operating expenses being under plan as well, we're up from plan by $20,000. And that is all I have on income statements, unless there are any other questions.
I like the large positive variances.
Yeah. Hopefully it stays that way. I didn't have any notes on the balance sheet comparison. You'll notice, though, the operating cash is a lot further under plan from compared to last year, but it's because we weren't using the LAIF account last year, so you can see the other side of that variance. So in reality, we're about $400,000 more in operating cash than last year. Moving on to the income statement comparison, the only thing I wanted to note was the large variance in other revenues, and that was because if you remember last year, the summer festival happened on June 30th, so we didn't have any summer festival revenue posted last year, but we obviously did this year, so that's the main part of that large variance. And that's all I have on that. Are there any questions about the comparisons?
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting after the summer projects to see how this washes out.
And then finally, the last report that's in your in the finance portion of the packet, the outstanding PO report. This is something that's brand new. We just started. We purchased this module from PCS so that we could keep better track of our POs. So now, whenever a PO is approved, Amy enters it into our purchasing module, and that way we have an electronic record of all of the POs, and I can tell, where we're heading, what's coming down the line more accurately. Because in the past, we would sign a PO, it would go in the book, and then, we wouldn't remember it until it actually came in. And so now we can I can pull this by fund, I can pull it by, when the POs are entered, so I can see what was entered in July that's still outstanding, what was entered in August. This is the list of every single outstanding PO. So I think this is a really good a way for us to keep track of what we're spending. And, if Eric wants to pull a report and say, where are we? And I can say, well, we've got this much outstanding already. Maybe we need to slow it down a little. Yeah, slow your roll.
Would you then expect that the budget, there's a lot of times in the budget where you say, oh, well, it's just timing, it's timing. So this PO tracking would help with that, to budget more accurately month by month? Is that?
Well, we do our monthly budgets. It's approved in June, so there's not a way to track that, but we can see what's coming, and if we know we're going to be over budget, it's a better way for us to track to see if we've spent more than what we budgeted for that month, or at least have an idea of what's been spent and how it's who's spending what.
Especially as we get to December, so when it gets a little dicey around cash flow, these will be good numbers to know. But in summer, I expect this is to be expected, and actually a little bit less than I thought it would be, because this is when we do all our projects. So there's a lot rolling through until we hit that first storm.
I just feel like it's another way for us to be able to keep an eye on things, a better way.
Kelly, I'm just looking at one item here. I guess it's the third one down. And the vendor is Bank of the West, and the item is paper towels.
The vendor isn't Bank of the West. It's something that was purchased on a credit card.
Okay,
so
that's right.
so that we know where it's where we have to enter it in the PO system. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's just the breaking out the credit card
Yeah.
statement.
Yeah.
West has a
I know they're diversified.
Yeah, like you can see on page 40, there is a
Yeah,
Bank of the West entry, and you can see the actual vendor is Lowe's. So we purchased a stove, and it was purchased on the credit card.
Jacket, zipper replacement, all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
And that is all I have on finances. I can let you know that the audit went very well. Obviously, it's still happening. The financials, the financial statements are. They plan to get them to us by the 30th of September. But everything went really well. Happy with the auditors as usual. They're really great to work with. We have a good relationship. So, no big surprises or errors on my part. So.
When will you know the government charges gas fees?
We know.
We know.
They were.
Okay.
Oh,
Right.
you weren't. Yeah, they're posted already. If you look at June's the last financials, they're on there.
Okay.
They weren't as bad as
Right.
we feared, but
Yeah.
they weren't
Quite
great.
a lot bigger liability for the new OPEB. That new, but it was about $175,000 in OPEB and 117 in or 113.
It's a lot less for
Yeah.
pension than it was
Yeah. For OPEB.
for OPEB.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yep.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly.
And go to item 8B, performance reporting and aquifer levels.
That was a mistake. There's nothing to report. We haven't done meter reads since the last board
Okay.
meeting. So it's the same.
I just did them today.
All right.
So we'll move to item 8C, propane, the greenhouse gas offset component.
So the planning committee met today, and I had a good discussion about this. So if you remember at the last board meeting, it was a sense of the board to move ahead, instructed staff to begin an implementation of the voluntary program for both electric purchase of RECs, voluntary purchase of RECs, as well as, or the voluntary funding for the purchase of RECs, as well as the voluntary funding for propane offsets. Our discussion today at the planning committee really focused on the propane aspect of it, and Jess, is Jess still here? Jess made a nice report along with Bob on that, and so I think we're all set to use, is it Bonneville?
We'd use Bonneville Environmental as the purchasing agent. They're a nonprofit set up by the state of Oregon. And we purchase only offsets that have been certified and approved by the Climate Action Registry, which was set up by the California legislature. And the ones that the initial one that we're leaning toward is a forestry offset of a forest near the Garcia River in the coastal range, working on improving the carbon uptake of that forest and doing forestry management so it's sustainably managed.
So ideally, what we want to do is be able to fund such programs that are ideally in Northern California, and ideally someplace that if people want to visit it and see the fruits of their donations that they could. It may not always be that, but so the idea here is to send out the necessary information. We're going to start quickly with some notifications or the opportunities in October, closing by within 30 days. So 30 days to decide to participate or not. Understanding that certain HOA organizations, because for some things they only have single meters, may need an HOA board meeting or something like that. So the timing may not work out for them this year, but that's okay. I mean, what we want to do is make sure we get the wrinkles ironed out and make it a smooth process. So this will be, as we call it, a soft opening, sort of. But so Bob thinks that Computer Courage can have things set up on the website, and we'd be live in October.
Well, be precise, either October or November.
Yes, in October.
The implementation is done a month before we go out. So,
And then it will be an annual.
so the latest would be a notification November 1st,
All right.
and the earliest would be October 1st.
And it'd be simply an annual process, annual opportunities.
And we'll continue with Rex on the electric side, as we decided before, so it'll be a two-component thing with two different ways, Rex for electric, offsets for propane.
Can you describe the reception by the community of that program? I mean, I know you've done a survey and you may have talked about that already previously, but at this stage, how well it is received?
So the survey period ended August 23rd, and we did 3 notifications, each a week apart. We had 102 responses, which is way more than I would have guessed. It was overwhelmingly positive that we should offer something like this. 60% of respondents said they would be interested in being 100% renewable electricity. About 40% said they were interested in propane, but also the prices we quoted for propane would be 4 times. We reported prices that would be 4 times higher than what we'll actually need. Offsets, if you're trying to do offsets through a REC, it's $44 a ton. The forestry offsets are $12. So I think by having them be much closer to a 1% cost increase, that we would see a greater participation. It was really positive, and there was a lot of thoughtful questions and things like that. So for everyone who had asked the question, we'll make sure they get a response.
It was 89% thought the district should offer this service.
Yeah,
this voluntary program, 89.11, but who's counting?
So
thank you, Chris.
Communications, we'll go out in this month's newsletter. We just saw a draft of that. We'll be drafting an email thanking all the survey respondents and giving them a little bit more information. And so we'll just have to keep communicating, like the July 4th meetings, an ongoing communication effort so that people understand that the opportunity is there. But Jess reports that people have already been calling her saying, where do I sign up? So it's a good sign.
Yeah.
They got into the pay bill page, and they thought they could just pay us money based on Bob's calculations, and then we refunded her money. But people are very excited about it.
Yeah, much more positive than I would have. I had no idea what to expect, but this was far beyond anything I would have guessed.
Any indication whether Vail will support the programs?
Brian was in our meeting and he didn't give any indication. I don't know. But I think it's something, I don't know if there's a leader right now for the resort here.
Right.
But I think it's something we can explore, obviously, continuously with Vail to see if they want to participate. They may have their own program doing it on their own. They're big enough to do that. So.
Any other questions from the audience? If not, we'll move on to item 8D, possible budget augmentation and notice of award to proceed with the wastewater treatment plant roof replacement.
So thankfully, we will not be needing a budget augmentation based on the numbers I'm seeing now and what our engineering costs were in anticipation of our inspection costs in the back end. I think we're going to be within budget for this project. So we received 2 bids on Tuesday, one from Centaur Corporation and one from RSM, Rua, and Sun Mechanical. And the lowest responsible bidder, their bid is between $264,000 and $78,000. Depending whether we find asbestos or not, it's a contingency bid item, so it's going to be in that range, barring anything unforeseen. We budgeted $310,000. Obviously, we've used some of that for engineering, some staff time. Like I said, there will be inspection time on the back end, but staff's recommendation is that the board finds Cinemark is the lowest responsible bidder, and that they issue the notice of award and authorize me to issue the notice to proceed once all documents per the contract are provided.
What's the expected timing?
I believe we gave them 45 days for completion from notice to proceed.
Oh.
And so the operations committee concurred with Eric's choice. We worked with them before, and we hadn't worked with the other one, right?
That is correct.
I assume we've worked satisfactorily with Centaur.
Yes.
Well, I'd just like to move that we accept Centaur's bid as lowest responsive and responsible bid, and that we authorize the general manager to issue a notice to proceed once all paperwork is done properly.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving forward to item 8E, possible budget augmentation and notice of award to proceed. This is a transformer project. And Eric, you're up on this one too?
Yeah, and we apologize for this coming out late, but we did open bids on Thursday at 3, so that is why this came out. We did want to give as much time as possible. We did receive 3 bids on the transformers. We found that Howard Industries was the lowest responsible proposer on this. The third proposal was disqualified as it did not meet our dimensional specifications in the contract. Therefore, they were disqualified. That was a requirement. So we had 2 bidders that were responsible and responsive, and with Howard being the lowest, the second lowest was $117,000. This is over what was budgeted. Unfortunately, due to PG&E buying transformers like they're going out of style and some tariff implications, prices have skyrocketed since our last purchase of transformers. So it's not quite double, but it's nearly double what we budgeted for these transformers. And so staff recommends we do award to Howard Industries for $83,843, and that the budget be augmented by $33,843 as a component of that as well.
Yeah, what we've done historically is not change the budget. We sort of made that decision a few years ago, but to keep a running list of
Overages?
yeah, or variances.
Okay.
Unless somebody disagrees, I'd rather stick with the budget knowing it's imperfect, and we'll
Okay.
have to do that.
Yeah, that's fine.
And these are our property and our responsibility?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Well, on the emergency item, we'll get to something a little bit different, but yes, for these 2, these are ours and our responsibility.
Did they just break, or what happened?
One of them has had known issues, and we've
Both of them.
both of them had known issues. But we've had a lot of work done since I've been here. We've had a lot of work done relative to them, and so it's been a constant issue since I've been here, and I know that predates me as well. So these are the most critical ones that need replacement. These are old MU transformers.
MU, yeah.
How long is the customer out of service?
8 hours.
Yeah, a day, and we would try to schedule that at a low impact period if possible.
And the other thing that we didn't anticipate because of PG&E and them buying so many transformers is the delivery time that we experienced last time of 6 to 8 weeks is now somewhere between 14 and 19 weeks. So these will not be installed before winter. They will be installed next summer. But we will purchase them now and store them in the powerhouse out of the elements. But we want to get the order going before prices go up, which I'm really afraid they could.
Do you feel comfortable we can perform during the winter, during the ski season with these existing?
We've limped
Yes.
along for years. We will continue to limp along.
Do we have a sort of a schedule of lifetime for all the transformers and knowing when we replace them?
No. Should we? Yes. Right now, it's just triage mode for these, the ones we identify each year, and those are the ones we put in the capital budget.
So your reason for buying now and storing them is you think prices will go up?
Yes. The contractor or the proposers do have to carry these prices for 90 days, I believe, on the notice of award. But there's no reason to hedge with their long delivery time.
And if we're wrong about the current ones, we'll at least have an inventory for a
Be
clear
able to
day
sell
to
them
deal
back at
with.
higher prices later.
No, if we were forced to swap them out in winter, we would at least have the inventory to do it.
Are they all the same around? That if a different one went out,
No.
these ones you order would, no, okay, of course not.
Well, I mean, it's different loads. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
it's not a
I'm
function
saying-
of MU's incompetence.
But you order 2 for this, and then something else turns out to be worse.
Unfortunately, no. It's just a function of the load of that particular thing. The snow making compressor transformer, is 1,000 versus Mountain Club, which is 2,500, and that's just a function of the load of what's on that transformer. It would be nice to be standardized, but no.
And my last question, what did you say the lead time is from?
14 to 19 weeks, I believe, is what we're looking at. These are a little bit bigger than for a distribution system, bigger than normal, so longer lead time.
So they might get here by next summer.
Well, they would have the delivery time as in their proposal, so we'd have contractual remedies for liquidated damages should they not perform.
Eric, just to be clear, so we would be awarding the bid to Howard Industries for their bid of $117,000. Is that it?
No, 83,843.
And then we're just going to note the difference in the variance.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Do you need a motion for this?
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
Moved.
Okay, you move what Eric said, right?
Yes.
I'll second what Stan just said.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
You can stay if you want.
Very good. We'll move on to item 8F, which is playground status.
So this is just an update. We're not asking for any action at this time. The operations committee has provided some direction, but just wanted to bring you up to speed. We did get the inspection performed in July, and the report was not very positive. Essentially, we've taken, and the report's attached in here, so you can see it on page 50. But we've fixed the low-hanging fruit, the stuff that we can do with our internal staff. That's the critical stuff that we were capable of fixing, and we did cure those items.
Were those things that you were able to fix? I know. Remember in the report there was a ranking of.
Some were 2s, some were 3s, some were 4s. But there's still 2s uncured, 3s uncured, and obviously 4s uncured. Yeah, but some of the ones that were more dire, the hanging by the S-hooks, the hanging risk, we did fix those. And that was a 2, choking hazard. So we were able to fix that. It's a 2, for example, or the bolts that were a little bit, that were supposed to be maximum 1/8 inch past the nut, and they were 3/16 of an inch. That was a 4. We got those too. So it varied in terms of what our staff was able to do, and in terms of supplies we're able to get. But I guess the bottom line for the board is, 2 things need to happen. One, we need to do ADA improvements to the physical lot. That's something that has to happen if we keep it at its current location. That's about $30,000. The second thing is we need to completely replace the playground equipment. It does not include the swings. The swings are fine, but the actual playground structure itself would need to be replaced in its entirety. It is no longer serviceable. They will not come out and do repairs, retrofits, rehab, etc. And it's completely out of compliance. Particularly the slide is broken, so that's another one. But anyway, the entire playground structure itself needs to be completely replaced. And so we have the prices for that vary between $44,000 and $64,000 just for the playground equipment itself. So what the operations committee recommended is that we send out a survey to our customers, and I know survey fatigue, but what is this as in terms of priority for them, and what are they willing, and explain the financial implications that we would have to use property taxes to offset this, which means we'd have to raise rates for utilities more because they'd be getting less property taxes, and explain that, the ramifications of using that. So that's what the operations committee does. Once we get the survey results back, then we'll be able to bring this back to the board to speak coherently about how we want to proceed in the future.
Well, I think I mentioned last time this came up, but I know of a small community. It was in Colorado. It is in Colorado. A small community. They put in a playground all by grant money. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to search it, just to do a search at least on grants for ADA compliance, grants for playgrounds. I don't know what the opportunities might be, but it'd be worth a look somehow to see.
I do regularly scroll through grants. There was a really nice grant program that came out for playgrounds. Unfortunately, it was not available in special districts. It was only to traditional park and rec districts and counties themselves. So I actually did start going down the path of that. Was that 4 months ago? Even before this came back, I actually started down that path and got halfway through the application and went, oh, I can't apply for this. So I am always keeping a weather eye out for grants, and whether for any of our services. But yes, your point's well taken, and yeah, maybe we can move this to Colorado and get a grant.
Maybe this is the kind of situation where we could ask the county, would you apply on our behalf? We'll do the paperwork and so on. I don't know. You know, we're in Alpine counties.
Or can it be deeded to the county in some way to get around that issue?
Does the county have a park and rec department?
Do you need one? You want one?
Do you want one?
You have your first project.
It's always up for discussion, yeah.
What about, is it possible to ask for donations?
That's what I was going to say. There's at least one community park in Oakland where it was done by the community, and it was a very positive experience. You know, and the kids painted tiles, those sorts of things. So the degree to which, like families like myself that use this a lot, having something really nice and having an image of what it could look like, it might be something that people would want to support.
There's another suggestion, too, that we look at moving the park site to a flat one to avoid the ADA implications or minimize them.
Well,
and that's something else we can talk with Vail about. It's on my list to talk to Biggs about.
Do we have another spot in mind?
What is community plot?
You mean school site?
School site. Carolyn, I'm sorry.
I also brought it to the KCA attention, which I know Bertram and I both think is perhaps should be involved. I would say that a reaction from the board was lukewarm, but we will agendize it on our board to discuss. And we have a member meeting Sunday, and I'm going to ask for a show of hands as to support or not for the issue for whoever attends the meeting. Personally, I think there should be some KCA involvement, and perhaps our site would be another site. I don't know. I mean, you know, we have a bigger site that has already been developed.
Right. And it'd be nice to have it stay near the rec center.
But it's, of course, a long-term issue for us. And we don't really have money sitting around either.
Right.
Eric, a question. Does this have to be dismantled every year?
We dismantle and reassemble it every year. We won't. I mean, it's staff's recommendation. We don't ever reassemble this again after this October when it comes down. It's a huge liability issue to the district.
But this new one will be the same thing. You dismantle.
We would dismantle and reassemble every year. Mm-hmm. Actually, and I didn't include the quote on there, but Jess did talk to them, and they do have ones that are supposedly will take snow load. I don't know if they'll take a Kirkwood snow load, but there is allegedly one that is suitable for that climate, and we would investigate that as an option because that would reduce our liability and our constant deficit that we run in this department too. Because really our main costs, aside from some weeding and mild maintenance, is really the takedown and put up. That's what runs us into the hole every year. Storage doesn't cost me anything.
The woman that I talked to thought that there was a structure that would take Kirkwood snow load. The issue with that spot is snow gets blown there, and so it won't take that load.
Right. Early in June, Tom Fortune asked for an hour meeting with me. And he said, and his pitch was, I'm really embarrassed about our summer program, and I want to, quote, reboot summer. And so I think there was a wine dinner maybe 2 weeks ago. I'm not sure how many people attended, and he had another music one in mind. And a lot of it was also sort of taking my temperature for the fact that they weren't going to run the lifts for mountain bikes. And his point was a fixed grip lift can't do mountain bikes because it takes you longer to ride the lift with the stops and starts than somebody could walk up there. So I know he's leaving.
I think that should be tested.
I know he's leaving, but maybe before he gets out of town, could you say, hey, if you're committed to rebooting summer, you own the plot of property. We're willing to give you this stuff back. You just need to be committed to putting it up and taking it down.
Yeah, and I did have that discussion. They don't have an interest in owning it, owning the playground. And unfortunately, because we're not a 501c3 as the district, we can't apply for an act of promise relative to the playground. But they're supportive of a playground. They just don't want to own it.
He was supportive in our case community board meeting of some kind of help or resources.
Yeah.
So but that's very vague.
But if they had a flat plot, like someone mentioned where the climbing wall is, that might be the right place for it. Where the climbing wall
What did
is.
you just say?
Where the climbing wall is now, that might be a right.
That's.
And if they could give us a flat lot and just give us an easement to set it up, tear it down, it's a flat lot. We get rid of a lot of ADA issues there. I mean, that'd be very, very minor. In fact, our engineer suggested that would be very easy to retrofit with very minimal cost. Correct. So that's definitely things we'll be exploring, but the next step is to get the survey out and test the temperature. And we'll develop the questions and operations, and I'm sure one of the questions will be, are you willing to participate in a fundraiser, would be a question that would be asked, and those sorts of things.
Well, I think what I'll do, I'll see what happens in our annual member meeting and at least report back by email.
Yeah.
So maybe you could take whatever I get to your survey.
That'd be great.
Any other comments from the audience?
Well, I guess my only one is I must have not heard that number at the operations committee because I dialed in, but it seems to me that spending $70,000 of ratepayers' money on a playground is not what we should be in the business of doing. That's just an initial reaction.
Yeah, that's my initial reaction.
Mine too.
When we have wastewater treatment plant
Yeah, Jesus.
needing what it needs, I mean, it's...
Yeah, we ended up at the playground. Like everyone else took one step backwards, right?
I think we have some options out there, though, to look at it, so I don't want to, be a hard no, and let's see what we can come up with. And maybe some new grant cycle will come up that we're lucky with. Or
We built the playground back in the 90s. I mean, we didn't have all these liabilities. We just said water and wastewater as our main liabilities. So it was a little bit easier to make that choice. And the original equipment that we put up, actually, we didn't take down. But it was very primitive. It was wood.
But I think people are not going to understand all the reasons why it's not going to be put back up. What they're going to do is blame you. I mean, I've already seen that reaction from people in the last 2 days when I've talked to them. So I understand all the reasons, and all of you do, but the community who cares about it is going to just blame you. So that's just
Well, that's why we need to send out a survey with some of the facts
Yeah.
and let them get a more accurate
I
perspective
think we
of
should be in a
what's
position we
involved.
want to find a way to create a new playground that's durable and financially sustainable. And that's our mission, is figure out how to do that, but not necessarily pay for it.
I agree with that.
But it's certainly our responsibility to find a way to have a replacement occur.
Any other comments on this item? So the survey would go out when?
We'll bring it back to the next ops to talk about questions. The ops committee committed to coming up with some questions, and we'll cobble those together. And I imagine it'll go out over the winter time. We won't be putting it back up or anything back up until June anyway. So we do have some time, and it's not like we could construct it in the winter anyway. So we have a bit of time to work with it.
Would you say you would put the swings back up? If I'm going to ask, I want to know, or you're not going to put anything back up for sure? Is that
We'll wait and see what happens.
okay?
Yeah, I can't definitively answer that because I don't know what the future holds.
Okay.
If there's no more discussion on this item, we'll move to item 8G, Chair 11 Transformer.
Okay, so this just came to our attention on August 22nd. Vail, in our estimation, hit our transformer and damaged it. Their point was there were no witnesses. Our point was no one else runs heavy equipment over there, but I'm willing to entertain other theories. There were no other theories, therefore they're going to have to pay for it. And as a result of us, two things. One, we want to get this replaced. We do have a old transformer that probably could work through this winter, and it's a temporary fix, which is what we would propose to do. As you heard, our backlog on getting transformers. This is a smaller one. It could come quicker. I don't know. But in order to purchase this, and since we're doing the order now, what we're asking is that the board declare this is an emergency, that we need to replace it because of timing, et cetera, and waive the contract threshold of $15,000 to acquire replacement equipment so we can get it coming as soon as possible and hopefully get it coming earlier. 500 kVA is much more normal size, and I won't say off the shelf, but our anticipation is it's going to have a shorter lead time than the big ones we just ordered, or we just authorized ordering. So we'd like the board, one, to find that there is emergency. It's a sudden unexpected occurrence, and that we need to immediately replace it, and therefore we waive the $15,000. And what we would do is issue a change order to Howard, who we just awarded the transformer project to provide a 500 kVA as well. There's no budgetary impacts, as this is 100% pass through to Vail, both of our district time as well as the equipment itself.
Make that motion, declare this an emergency situation, and to authorize general manager to make the expenditure that he needs.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to go through these real fast then so we can actually hit our 6 o'clock meeting and need to get out of here by 6:05. I was wrong, Bob. It's not 6:30. So we're doing better. Just a quick report. We had our Aqua JPIA inspection 2 weeks ago. That went well. They came to inspect our facilities. We have a new person administering that, Robin Flint, and good inspection. She did not identify anything very critical. A lot of opportunities to talk about training for us, and Rick and I will be visiting their office September 25th. September 26th. Your anniversary is the 25th. Yes. So we'll be visiting their offices in Roseville. We'll also be talking at that time about the health insurance options, which goes back to what the board decided earlier on in June about exploring other options for our health insurance provider, which would reduce our OPEB liability as a result of getting out from under the CalPERS umbrella. So we'll be doing that as well. The CSA NOIA litigation was settled by our insurance company, so that is done. And that was done between Aqua JPIA and AAA Insurance. So they have settled that, and there is no further litigation. They withdrew their claim. Kelly already touched on the audit, but it was 2 weeks, not just one. Kelly was working like a crazy person for getting ready for it, plus the 2 weeks they were here. Everything went very well. We do have a proposal from them to continue for another 3-year contract. The pricing is similar to what we're seeing right now, and we'll be bringing that back, but it will be staff's recommendation that we continue with Moss Adams. At this point, we have a good working relationship, and we like their staff, and they do a good job. They've been very helpful whenever we've needed anything throughout the year. So that we'll be bringing that back to the board for final approval once we get that done. And that's all I had. I added stuff for you.
I see that. You stole my thunder on the first one, so I'm going to pass over that.
Well, you have the picture, though.
Yeah, let's go show the picture.
There's the Chair 11 transformer.
You mean the one buried in the snow?
Yes, the one on the left
And
there.
I've got it over here in this corner. So underneath the chair.
There's actually no protection for it.
There are bollards there. If you look, there is a bollard right there.
Down here.
One.
There's two.
There's two. But we will be, if they relocate it, but we will be putting 4 bollards around it, so when they hit it, they'll really know they hit it, and they won't be able to say there were no witnesses.
We can leave the picture up.
Oh, okay.
That's fine. So just a few things. And for solid waste, we do have a homeowner's large bin staged at our solid waste area. It's on the left-hand side. The door is actually on the meadow side, so don't be alarmed. Don't feel like you have to toss it over. You can actually go through a door on the other side.
They're open.
It's open now.
It's open.
I tossed somebody's old Rosinal skis in there, so. We'll keep that through the weekend, of course, and if we need another one, we can always order it, but typically one's enough for the Labor Day weekend. We also are going to continue with defensible space chipping. This will occur probably middle of next week or the week afterwards. Typically Labor Day weekend, we also have a big buildup of defensible space chipping, so don't be alarmed. We will be back out there. And then after the last chipping session here in September, that might be it. If we have time, we can maybe go back out in October, but things are getting pretty busy in October for us, as you can imagine. Tomorrow we have our 39th annual Kirkwood 5K and 10K. The event is in the same location, same race course as it has in the last several years. Registration starts at 8 a.m. We have a kids run that kicks off at 9 a.m. It's a half-mile kids run. And then the 5K, 10K starts at 9 a.m. promptly. We'd like to close registration down at 8:30 to allow us time to input all the last-minute sign-ups through the Ultra Sign-Up program that we're using. But if folks come in at 8:35, we're not going to turn anybody away. We'll certainly get them in the race. But I appreciate and thank you to Jessie for doing a lot of heavy lifting behind the scenes getting ready for this event on top of the board meeting and everything else that she does. So thanks, Jessie. As you know, we do have some paving going on in the valley. Contractor's been going around and cleaning up, beautifying some of the potholes, but we've also been discovering that he's covering up manhole, G5 cans, valves, and as Eric mentioned earlier, vaults. So we've been certainly following up behind them to either, one, find missing things, or two, make sure we don't lose anything in the future. And then finally, we are in the process of our manhole collection system rehabilitation. As you know, we did this last summer. It was what I thought was very successful. Our staff's identified over, we get the number up to 15, 16? 16. And we've already completed, as of yesterday, 7. So if you see our staff out in the valley or working near a manhole, that's what they're doing, and we'll continue on as we possibly can. And that really concludes my operations report. That a few other things, but they were mentioned in committees and here at the board, and that's it. So, looking for any questions. Thank you.
I do have a question. I meant to ask it ahead of time, but my understanding is there's a meeting this month, September 22nd in there, regarding the possible closure of Highway 50. and diverting traffic on 88.
There are two meetings that Caltrans is having. Dana Jorgensen, representative for Bigelow, and the new fellow, Borges. He did forward that to me. I did go to a previous open house that they had in South Lake, but they're having another one. I've actually been in quite a bit of contact. I think you guys, the board's been CC'd on a few emails that I've been in contact. I've shared some videos of very troubling big rigs that we've never seen on 88, or so I haven't seen in my 2 years, and driving in a very dangerous manner. I've been in contact with many of not only Caltrans, but with many of the trucking companies. I have nice video every morning and afternoon on my camera, and I've been sending that to them. I do know that I've received very positive response from the safety officers from those truck companies. But yes, starting September 15th through its 2-week closure. So there is one meeting in Placerville, and then there's one in not South Lake.
You want to see Myers?
Yeah, Myers. It was in Myers. Someone will be attending that meeting as well, just like I attended. I believe it's this summer, and then another closure next summer.
For what purpose?
To replace the bridge, the Meyer Bridge.
Are you going to beef up somehow the fire department? Isn't that the main impact? If there's big rig traffic, that there could be more accidents or more serious accidents?
It's going to impact all of us, and we've certainly discussed it with the area chiefs on the highway impact for emergency services. But I'm not so worried about the September. This one is between seasons. It's the next year, how long it's going to take and when they're going to do it.
Thank you. We don't standing committee reports. We'll start with planning.
Like I said, we had a meeting today. We covered the greenhouse, the carbon thing. We talked about the district newsletter delivery methods, and after some discussion, the consensus of the committee is to recommend that we phase into over several months at least of an email-only production of the newsletter, and have the paper version available here. But there are a couple of reasons for that. I don't know if this is going to require a board agenda item. I don't quite know how that would work, but the primary reasons are just the cost of stuffing the envelope with the paper newspapers, and data that Eric has gathered and Jesse has gathered that indicate that typically with a folded paper item, there's very low percentage readership. We know that on our emailed newsletters, we can track it, and it's 55% or something like that who actually read it,
Or
open it up, theoretically, at least skim it. The other real benefit is in the paper version, Jesse has to fill it up, and sometimes there's no material that really fills it up, so she kind of has to search around for it and just to fill up the paper. The electronic version, it can be whatever length it needs to be, so a little bit more efficient in that sense. We did recommend that we stay with a monthly newsletter. So that was a recommendation from the Planning Committee. We talked about snow removal biannual survey metrics and agreed that there should be a question around meeting expectations as opposed to simply being satisfied. But there will be a series of actions taken to communicate to people what it is that is intended to be done at each storm. And I don't know, Eric, do you want to summarize what that was, or we may do you want to put it on the next board agenda, or?
I think that what we're going to do, as I understood, we left planning, is that we're going to come back and develop the questions and then the metrics around those questions, and then include them on our normal biannual survey, which is August of 2020. And so some of the questions would be, did you take advantage of the residency list? Did you read the notifications, the daily notifications that we do about snow removal? Did our service in low snow events meet your expectation of or were you plowed the number of times you expected in a low snow event? Were you plowed the number of times and set their expectations to what a low snow event would look like versus a triage where we're just keeping lanes open for ambulances and fire engines and explaining that and setting their expectations so they can answer the question in a way. Oh, it was a really heavy storm. Did they meet my expectations versus a light storm? And that's kind of how they.
I think one of the really nice ideas that came out is that there will be a daily posting during storm cycles, a daily, or even after a storm cycle, a daily posting of what the district intends to do, is planning to do that day, given the character of the storm and where we are in the storm cycle, so that people will know what's going on, how many plows are out, how many personnel, what's intended to be done, and so on.
And just to be clear, for those of you who use the residency, we did a daily notification last year, but only if you use the residency list. Now we're going to put it up front and center on the main page on Kirkwood. So someone who's in an HOA that doesn't have a driveway normally wouldn't set residency will be able to see the same notice that our driveway customers were able to see.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
We also talked about topics for the economic development group and for legislative outreach. There were a number of items that we talked about, but essentially the consensus was we should wait for the economic development group. There's supposed to be a core group established to nail down what it is the economic development group is supposed to be doing, what the purpose of it is, what its mission is, and then piggyback onto that these specific initiatives. But the initiatives would be like, how do we keep Highway 88 open more completely? And Bob put it very nicely, which is how do we make it such that anyone who wants to come to Kirkwood at any time is likely to be able to do that and to do what it is that they want to do with it. So there were a number of ideas, but this was a very healthy beginning discussion. A lot more interest in it than I thought there would be on the agenda item.
And the one thing I think, Eric, we're going to...
Yes, and it's very important. Cheryl pointed out that we be represented on this core group. The core group, I can't remember what the membership is, but it's a key person from each of the counties.
KVD,
KCA, the developer, the KCA, the resort. But we need a person, and I think it should be a board member. They do want to meet with us sometime in the next several weeks, and I know that, not that I wouldn't do it, of course, but I won't be around for much of September and part of October. So, but I think it might be appropriate for the board president to be that person. That's a suggestion. And Jeff has been involved with this economic development group at this point, so that would be my suggestion, is that if with Jeff's that Jeff appoint himself to be the core group member for the economic development group.
But carefully monitor the situation.
I'd support that.
So appointed.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
So Cheryl, just need to let Cheryl know, or Eric let Cheryl know that that's the case. And then Bruce is trying to set up this meeting sometime in the next several weeks so that something will be ready for the October meeting that I believe Eric is hosting. And then finally, we talked about committee member appointments, aiming towards January appointments for a new cycle, new 2-year cycle. In the planning committee, Judy Flynn's home has sold, so she is no longer on the committee. We have room. We've had 3 people on the committee who said they would like to continue. But we'd like to be sure to open up the process so we understand who all might be interested. But that'd be the case for each of the committees. So we talked about that. But we do know that there are 3 interested people. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Operations?
I think we covered it pretty extensively. It's mainly talked about the playground and the bidding.
Finance?
Urgent bidding.
We canceled our meeting in September for lack of content.
IT,
We haven't met.
and personnel has not met.
Peter, we also said the 3 public members who are on want to stay on.
Right. Operations committee, yeah. Right.
Good.
And finance, what's the story there? What happens with the,
Nobody objected to the 2 o'clock.
no, I meant the, do you have a report on outside member interest in continuing, or when would you give that report?
I would give that at the next finance.
Okay.
But yes, I've received comments from all but one,
Okay.
which would be Paul Fontenauer is the only one. But his term's still going, so maybe that's why he didn't reply.
We're good. We have no temporary advisory committees.
Could I just say something?
Sure.
At this point, Rick, Eric, and I are meeting with Terry and a group from Alpine County this coming Tuesday. I forwarded information to Stanish because at our last board meeting we agreed that this would be passed on to the Finance Committee. Stanish, I don't know if you're around on Tuesday. Are you still here? No? Okay. Well, we'll be sure to fill you in because I think that this will be a point
Actually, that's
which...
the real reason to cancel the finance committee meeting.
That is the reason. No, that is the reason, just because we really have to have this meeting with the county, and this is what worked. Okay, so I just want to let people know that we're having this meeting. It's going to really set the direction, I think, for a board decision.
Okay, moving on to item 13, general discussion. Anything we haven't covered here the board wants to bring up? If not,
I would like to say something. You, in the newsletter, you write about the invasive weeds, and I've talked to homeowners the last couple of days about it. And you have the ones you talk about right around your own property here. And so I would just like to say that I would like to see more effort on getting rid of the invasive weeds. It's really important. I'm really concerned about that problem in this valley.
Yeah, I agree on that. The sweet clover or the sweet clover.
Well, the broom, especially. And it's
You'll
right-
be
it's
happy
all
to know,
right
Carolyn, the entire
know.
district spent 2 hours today pulling weeds.
Oh, no, but it's right here as I walk across the property. So I'm just saying,
Right.
I think it's a concern, and I've been talking like this for about 25 years now about it, and I just want to make sure people understand it is a problem and it needs to be addressed.
with that, I'll call this meeting closed. And if you'll stay seated, we will be calling an emergency meeting to order. And this is for staff report on the T1 communication line repair project. So with that, the meeting is called, emergency session is called to order.
So the reason for this emergency session is the T1 communication line project will be bidding in between board meetings. We will open bids after the next board meeting, and then it's almost a month delay till the next board meeting. Due to the timeliness of the project and trying to get it done and issuing a notice of award and notice to proceed to a contractor before the October 12th board meeting and to get ahead of winter, staff is requesting that the board authorize me to issue the notice of award and notice to proceed for this project, provided that it does not exceed the budgeted amount by more than 25%.
And this is a recommendation made by the Operations Committee, and I so move that we do that.
Second motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
Before we vote, how much do you expect it to cost?
We had originally budgeted $75,000, but I wanted leeway just so I didn't lose that window.
That's $75,000 to fill up all the conduit with this liquid?
Both Silver Lake and Bear, and there's excavation involved in traffic control and those things.
Basically putting the gel in where they're hanging from the bridge.
Correct. We've already obtained our encroachment permit from Amador County for the bear work, and Caltrans has informed us that our maintenance permit will be sufficient for the silver work.
And when do you think this would start if we approve this?
Well, we would open bids on September 16th. I would issue the notice of award probably the following day. I believe we allow 10 working days to provide all contract documents, so it would be the September 27th would be the notice to proceed.
I support it.
Postponing it any longer from there, it's really dangerous.
I assume that gel has to go in
When there's a certain temperature.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons we're trying to expedite this.
Brandy answered that question for us. It's got to be really low for it not to work, right?
Correct. We are confident we can get it in working temperatures even until the fall.
Good. So it's been, I think, moved and seconded.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. There being no other business, I will call the emergency board meeting closed. And I thank everyone for coming today. Thank you.
Thank you.